My name is Dieter Strasser. I'm the owner and founder of Viral Projects GmbH and also the founder of the Kanban user group in Austria. And I'm really thrilled that we have a special guest today, Mrs. Sonja Sidorova from NAVE. And I see NAVE as a really, really clever company, which is a pattern breaker. But I don't want to tell you to let us get the stage to pass over to Sonia. And this session will be recorded. So feel free to shut down your screen if you want it. And first, Sonia told me that she need around 30 to 40 minutes. Please let us listen to her. And if you have any questions, enter the chat. And I will collect the chat and pass it to Sonia. And we have afterwards sufficiently time to talk about and to exchange. So Sonia, let's do your job and please give us your presentation and tell us what you carried out from Bulgaria to us here in Austria.
Thank you very much, Dieter. I'm glad that I'm here, and thank you very much for having me. Our topic is very exciting, and today I have plenty of giveaways for you too, so stay with me till the end of the presentation. As Dieter said, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section. We're going to go through them at the end of the presentation. So now we're going to talk about the 3-step product management guide to delivering on your commitments. Life is busy. All the time we shuffle between wishes, needs, and duties. And it's just impossible to do all of them at once. It's how time and space limit us. So why do we lean on the illusion that a long list of tasks will get shorter if we start several of them at once? To-do lists always have more to-dos than the team can cross out of a given time. And priorities always emerge. The more productive the team is, the more work is thrown at them. However, this has a short-term effect and leads to stress and overburden. Eventually, people lower their productivity and the whole business suffers. We start losing customers instead of gaining new ones, even though we worked so hard. And the best teams are highly motivated to perform. They show engagement, professionalism, and dedication. And when unrealistic goals and impossible demands take place, their active engagement leads to rising levels of stress, and their overall productivity and efficiency begin to drop. Burnout is a state of chronic stress. It doesn't appear suddenly. Everyone experiences stressful days from time to time, and these alone won't cause burnout in your team. Burnout symptoms start to appear after a prolonged period of too much workload and elevated stress levels. And setting unrealistic deadlines introduces the risk of burnout. Letting your workers burn out would be a huge waste. It is a continuous business struggle finding and attracting highly committed and engaged individuals anyway. Introducing these individuals to your internal processes and the ins and outs of your business, this is a big investment. And by exposing your employees to commitments they're not able to meet, you run the risk of losing your most motivated and hardworking people. Pursuing super ambitious deadlines, either pushed down by the management or committed by the team itself based on guesswork, may have a far-reaching negative impact not only to your customers, but on your employees as well. Impossible deadlines mean it's unlikely that your team will be able to achieve them, and so they will often miss targets. If they regularly fail to deliver on time, the question on the table will be, why is the team underachieving while they have been forced to push themselves to their limits to meet unrealistic expectations? Meeting a deadline is a motivation booster. However, if your team constantly misses their deadlines, they will feel like this as well. They feel like they're not achieving as well. Your employees need to know how their work brings value to your company. They need to see how their efforts contribute to the business success. If they don't, this can impact their self-esteem, motivation, engagement, and this will ultimately damage your company's bottom line. Voluntary turnover is a problem that's costing the US economy $1 trillion per year. $1 trillion per year. And this problem is self-inflicted by organizations. If staff feel like they can never and will never be able to meet your expectations, they may realize their only option is to resign. Not only do you lose up to 2 times their annual salary in turnover costs, but all their expertise and knowledge of your company walk away through the front door too. And you may feel like taking as much work as possible promises the best outcomes for your company. But excessive demand and setting unrealistic expectations not only affect your employee physical and emotional health, but it can also be disruptive for your business. So it causes low productivity, poor efficiency, and delayed deliveries. When impossible deadlines take place, your team will be forced to sacrifice the quality of their deliverables while they're in the throes of full-fledged burnout. They will rush tasks and cut corners, causing defects and poor quality outcomes, despite the fact that they're working even harder to meet their commitments. On the other side of the meadow, when they face unrealistic expectations and take the time to finish their work with precision and quality, they will regularly fail to deliver on time. And in the end, our clients are those who have to wait longer to receive what they've requested. From a client perspective, this is a complete disaster as they have little to no predictability and very slow service times. They start looking for alternatives on the market, putting pressure on our economic situation, which in turn forces us to accept even more requests and setting up even more unrealistic expectations to remain cost-effective. Can you see how this vicious circle can result in a very uncomfortable situation? When it comes to the big question, when will this be done? There is an expectation of having a single certain delivery date as an answer, and people tend to provide it. The fact is, people feel more comfortable being wrong than uncertain. The fear of uncertainty is a cultural problem, and Professor Geert Hofstede, a Dutch population biologist, conducted one of the most comprehensive studies of how values are influenced by national culture. He defines 6 dimensions of national culture, one being the uncertainty avoidance index. The index is scaled from 1 to 100. The higher the index, the more uncomfortable to uncertainty you are as a society. Countries exhibiting strong uncertainty avoidance index maintain rigid codes of belief and behavior and are intolerant of unorthodox ideas. You can see that in this diagram, the uncertainty avoidance index of Germany is quite high. It's 65. It's very high. Based on that research, we rather provide a single certain delivery date that's wrong than remain uncertain. And traditional deterministic thinking has installed deep roots in our mindsets. We have been committing to single certain delivery dates for so long that being uncertain feels so very uncomfortable. The biggest problem with deterministic thinking is that we assume we know what will happen in the future with 100% certainty upfront. 100% certainty for the future does not exist in our world. Alas, no one has invented the magic crystal ball just yet. Knowledge work flows through a discovery process. We become more certain as time passes and we gather new information. We can only be 100% sure when we will deliver something at the moment we deliver it. So, how can we answer the question, when will this be done? Can we predict exact future delivery dates despite the unpredictability of knowledge work? Are we capable of predicting the exact time a feature will take to go through the whole process while maintaining the rest of the work in progress at the same time? Is it possible to predict that there won't be any additional work coming in between, any defects, dependencies, bottlenecks, or external blockers that might cause a delay? There are two approaches trying to provide the answer to the when will this be done question: a deterministic estimate and a probabilistic forecast. What's the difference? Estimates are predictions based on guesswork, judgment, intuition, or gut feeling. The prediction is delivered as a single value. It could be a date or a number of days, for example. An estimate doesn't involve any probability of its occurrence. When you estimate your delivery, you don't know whether there is 20% chance or 50% chance or 80% chance of meeting your commitment. Forecasts, on the other hand, are based on historical performance data. The prediction is communicated as a range of values and the probability of those values occurring. Forecasting is faster, cheaper, and much more reliable than estimating. And when making business decisions, we're constantly confronted with possibilities whose outcomes we don't know. Getting rid of uncertainty and being in control of everything is impossible. The real challenge is dealing with the uncertain and unknown in an effective way, and that's the realm of probability. Using a probabilistic approach to making future predictions based on past performance data increases the predictability of our outcomes. Making probabilistic forecasts helps us maintain high levels of customer and stakeholder trust, satisfaction, and retention. It allows us to define service level agreements with more confidence and deliver value to our customers in a consistent, predictable manner. And in a Kanban system and in flow-based systems in general, teams commit to the individual task by making just-in-time commitments. Just-in-time commitment is a commitment that happens at the last possible moment. This is the moment when we start working on something. This approach provides us with a lot of flexibility as we're able to reprioritize up until the moment a task gets pulled into the workflow. Once the work is in the process, it is considered committed, and the team should do everything in their power to meet their commitment. Commitments should be communicated as forecasts. They should come with a range of cycle times and the probability of achieving each of them. They look like: we expect this task to be delivered in less than 14 days, and we are 85% certain it will be. Or there is a 95% chance to finish this task in less than 21 days. Commitments are not contracts. These are goals, and there is always a chance of them not being kept. The challenge manifests itself when teams have to deal with the unpredictable nature of knowledge work, and they shouldn't be blamed if they don't manage to meet a commitment every time. Think about failures as opportunities for improvement. This approach will boost motivation, engagement, and dedication. It will help you build an environment of evolutionary change and a culture of trust, respect, and appreciation. And if you want to meet your customers' expectations, you should set and manage realistic goals in the first place. Building trustworthy relationships with your clients is the key to long-term success. You need to base your commitments on facts, not intuition. And here is our 3-step product management guide on how to set and manage realistic goals using your past performance data. Step number 1, make a probabilistic forecast. Stop estimating and start forecasting. I will walk you through the approach of making probabilistic forecasts using your historical data. Step number 2, determine the ideal start date range. Start your work on time, neither too early nor too late. We will identify the ideal start date range to increase the likelihood of delivering on time. And step number 3, manage your work in progress to meet your goals. On that step, I'll show you how to establish a dynamic prioritization system that will enable you to keep your commitments. Step number 1, make a probabilistic forecast. We spend too much time and effort speculating about the future rather than studying the recent past and using our own performance data. We believe that our new work is so unique and different when in fact it's much more similar to the work we've done already. Looking into our historical data is the best approach to predict what might happen in the future. Probabilistic forecasting is amongst the most effective methods to predicting delivery times with maximum accuracy. And scatter plots can be of great help when it comes to cycle time analysis and making probabilistic forecasts. The diagram displays all of your completed tasks as dots scattered on a plot. It tells you when and how long tasks have taken to complete. By observing and analyzing your cycle times, you will be able to evaluate how fast you're delivering value to your customers. The goal is to reduce the delivery times to an optimal level for your team. The dotted horizontal lines stretching across the graph are called percentile lines. We use percentiles to establish service level agreements and define the probability of different commitment points being met. For example, the 50th percentile on our scatter plot points to 8 days. This means that half of the tasks so far have been completed in less than 8 days. We can now say that any future task we take on has a 50% chance of being finished in less than 8 days. You can also filter your data by class of service. It is highly likely that the 85th percentile for fixed delivery date tasks comes with a different cycle time than the 85th percentile for expedites, for example. The results will still be valid. That way, you can provide different SOAs for different work items you're committing. The scatter plot produces a probabilistic forecast. It provides the range of commitments along with the probability of each commitment happening by using your past performance data. And the main benefit of using this approach is that the probabilistic forecast clearly defines the risk associated with certain outcomes. The percentile lines on the chart, 50%, 85, 95, 99%, communicate the risk you're managing. The probabilities that it produces quantify the risk in terms of percentages. The question, well, will this be done, is not that interesting anymore. The question now is how much risk you're willing to take. If you want to commit to a delivery time with less confidence, let's say commit to 8 days on the 50th percentile, which by the way is the same confidence level that comes with flipping a coin, you really ought to ask yourself whether you want to manage that level of risk. When we make delivery commitments, we want to mitigate the risk as much as we can. 50% certainty is very low. Ideally, you would like to work with 70%, 85, or 95% certainty when you're making your commitments. And if you look into the percentiles here, you'll see that the last one points to 99%. Remember, there is no such thing as 100% certainty that something will happen in the future. There is no model that provides that level of certainty. You should always think about your delivery commitments in terms of risk. If you commit to the delivery time on the 50th percentile, you will be wrong 1 out of every 2 times. If you commit to the amount of work, if you commit to the time, the cycle time on the 85th percentile, you will be wrong 1 out of every 7 times. If you go for the 95th percentile, the risk of failure drops down to 1 out of 20 times. The higher the percentile you select, the more confident you can be when making your commitment, as the lower the risk of failure will be. All right, let's move to step number 2. Determine the ideal start date range. Now that we know the range of commitments and the probabilities coming with each of them, it is time to determine your ideal start date range. And the best chance for delivering on time comes when you make sure you start on time. When you start working on your tasks too early, you're both wasting capacity on work that is not yet due and running out of capacity for work that is due. When you start too late, though, you risk delaying your work and breaking your commitments. The longer you wait, the higher the chance of a delay. So, in order to identify the best time to start, and you have your due date already set up, look at your probability forecast for the specific class of service you are interested in. The ideal time range to start your work is any time between the 99th percentile and the 85th percentile. Again, there are no assumptions here. You only make data-driven decisions based on your own past performance data. Let's say your forecast says there is a 99% chance to finish a fixed delivery date task within 13 days and an 85% chance to finish it within 10 days. And let's say you need to deliver on November 30th. This means that the ideal time to start your work is between 13 and 10 days before the delivery date, or any time in the range November 17th, November 20th. By initiating your work within the normal start date range, essentially you have at least an 85% chance of delivering it on time. By using this approach, you observe over time that those 10 days already point to your 95th percentile, and the cycle time that the 85th percentile represents is going down. By shifting all the percentiles down, you have already improved your performance. By keeping those lines close to each other, you reduce the variability in your workflow and thus increase the predictability in your system. And the more stable your system is, the more accurate forecasts it will produce. And step number 3 is manage your work in progress. You need to manage your work once it has already been started to make sure you can keep your commitments. The secret here is to enable your team to make decisions on their own by following certain prioritization rules that will ensure on-time delivery. And when it comes to establishing a work in progress dynamic prioritization system, classes of service come into play. Classes of service have 2 main purposes. First, to classify different work items according to their priority, and second, to clearly define how the items in each class of service should be treated using explicit policies. By having explicit policies in place for each class of service, you effectively enable your team to self-organize around the work. As an example, imagine all of your servers go down. Getting back online immediately is an extremely high priority. On the other hand, code refactoring is a low priority task. There are 2 work items, and all those 2 items would be placed in different classes of service, and they will move through the workflow with a different priority. Emergencies, hitting milestones, and any other critical tasks can be handled following the established policies, and everyone on the team knows what they need to do in each scenario. And the first step to implementing classes of service is to decide what your classes should be. We recommend starting simple at first and sticking to standard, fixed date, expedite, and intangible. You may find later on that you need to add another class of service or two. Try different combinations to find what works best to your workflow, but don't get for more than 5 or 6 classes of service to make sure the policies are easy to maintain and follow up. So to define the policies of how each classes of service is treated is essential. Tasks exist in the same workflow and go through the same steps. However, their class of service can affect how quickly they pass through the system. And the policies related to each class of service would look like this. Expedite class of service. Critical systems going down and unexpected serious glitches will naturally be treated as a high priority. This class of service is for top priority items that need to be handled immediately. Expedite items are allowed to break your WIP limits, and there must be only one expedite in the system at a time. The expedited work item should go out of the workflow as soon as possible. Fixed delivery date class of service. These are key handovers, release dates, and tasks with a fixed end date that is not likely to change and where the cost of delay is significant. Items with fixed date class of service have a higher priority than standard items. They are handled in the first in, first out fashion. Standard class of service, regular workflow tasks, features, improvements. The bulk of your work items should be in this class of service. Standard class of service work items have a higher priority than items with intangible class of service. And again, they should be processed using the first in, first out approach by pulling the oldest first. An intangible class of service, this is used to collect necessary but non-urgent maintenance tasks. They're normally handled if the team has the capacity to do so. Keep in mind, though, that an intangible item can become expedite if it is neglected for a long enough time. Now, as the start date approaches and you begin working upon your commitments following your explicit policies, you have to keep track of the age of your work in progress. The age of WIP and cycle time are essentially the same metric, only cycle time is measured against completed tasks, whereas the age of a task is a measure concerning tasks that are still in progress. And tools such as the aging chart offer a detailed measurement and overview of where your tasks are in your process and how much time they've already spent in progress. The colored zones on the chart draw the timeline of how your tasks have advanced in the past. For examples, the green zones here show the times that 50% of your previous work items have spent in each process state. And by observing how your current work is moving through the zones, you have a pretty good chance of meeting your commitments. Just make sure your work items don't cross the percentiles you use to define your SLA. The higher the dots, the larger the chance of delay. We usually recommend taking a closer look at the tasks that move to the yellow zone. These tasks have already spent more time in your process than half of the work items completed so far. And even with everything in place, things might not go as planned. Knowledge work is notorious for its unpredictable nature. Lots of unexpected and surprising things happen all the time. If you've committed to the 85th percentile and your work item just moved to the orange zone, for example, crossing the 70th percentile, don't fall into the trap of cutting from the scope or sacrificing the quality of your work to be able to deliver on time. Instead, in order to make sure you keep your commitment, introduce an explicit policy to expedite your fixed date task at the moment it goes above the 70th percentile. By expediting a task, you're effectively suspending another work item with lower priority that's currently in progress. Essentially, you borrow time that would otherwise be reserved for another task in order to fulfill your commitment. Keep in mind that expediting work generates flow depth, and make sure that the short-term benefits are worth it in the long run. By using this approach, your team will have the autonomy to make decisions on their own. And by understanding and following the explicit policies, they will be able to meet their commitments and build credibility as your workflow continuously improves. So, in order to evaluate if your improvement efforts are paying off, you need to monitor your due date performance. Your due date performance is a measure of reliability. Furthermore, it's a factor determining the quality of your initial forecast. One more time, the accuracy of your forecasts strongly depends on the stability of your system. Stable systems produce more accurate forecasts. You can evaluate your due date performance by comparing the time between the start date and the due date of a task with the actual time it took to deliver your work. And the due date performance chart can be of great help here. For each work item, the due date performance chart visualizes the predicted time versus the actual cycle time and plots a regression line of your performance. The predicted time is calculated as the difference between your commitment point, the moment when the work entered your workflow, and the due date of the task. While the cycle time is the actual completion time that your task needed to be finished. And the line plotted through the chart is called a regression line. It runs roughly through the middle of all the data points, and the slope of that line is the correlation between your predicted time and the actual time you spent finishing your work. It helps you assess the accuracy of your predictions and evaluate how efficiently your system is running. And the most important part of analyzing your due date performance is assessing whether your work has been delivered on time. Your on-time delivery metrics will show the percentage of times that you managed to deliver before your due date approached and how such trends have developed. For example, if you released 10 features today, 6 of them were finished on time and 4 of them were overdue, your due date performance for that day would be 60%. And following the product management guide steps back in 2018, we managed to increase our due date performance for 33% to 74% in just 2 months. We improved our on-time delivery by 120%, and 6 months later, we've reached a sustainable due date performance of 98% that we still managed to maintain. By switching from estimating to probabilistic forecasting, starting our tasks on time, and actively managing our work in progress, we eliminated our primary source of delays, setting and pursuing unrealistic deadlines. We have been producing more accurate future predictions and keeping our commitments ever since, which has ultimately resulted in a higher customer satisfaction. I do have a special bonus for you today. If you're interested to take this further and understand not only how to make reliable delivery commitments for a single item, but also how to forecast the delivery date of a project, download our complete guide to forecasting. It is free and you can find it at getnave.com/forecasting. I believe that Dieter is going to send you a link in the chat. The guide reveals several approaches explaining in detail how they should and should not be applied to make accurate delivery predictions. You gain a deep understanding of what tools to use and how to use them to meet your commitments. And one more thing, all the charts that I demonstrated in today's session are part of our solution NAVE. NAVE is a Kanban analytics suite that helps teams optimize their performance in order to achieve fast, smooth, and predictable delivery of customer value. We provide integrations with the most popular management tools on the market: Jira, Trello, Asana, Azure DevOps. And NAVE is available as an add-on in the Atlassian Marketplace and the Trello Power Apps directory as well. If you're interested to try it out, analyze your own data, and put everything we talked about today in action, go to getnave.com and sign up for a free trial. And for all of you who joined us today, we're giving away a 10% discount of your annual plans if you subscribe until 30th of June. You'll find the discount code in the chat. And with that, I would like to thank you very much. I really hope that you enjoyed this session, and let's jump to the Q&A session. Dieter, how are you doing out there?
Thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you very much. Really, that's really interesting, and you gave me some new perspective in some points. But first, what are the questions of you both, Aaron and Anne-Sophie? What do you think? I'm afraid I have to go. Sorry for the kids.
I'm really, really sorry the kids go.
But you're too fast with your chat, okay?
I just because I don't thought that you were finished at the moment, so I thought the presentation will be much longer, so that's why I just write it down. But Sonia, thank you very much. You open some new perspectives for me, so I will think about it, and then I think I will come back to you.
Yes, Sophie, it was my pleasure. Feel free to contact me in LinkedIn. I would love to continue the conversation.
Great. Oh yeah, that sounds perfect. Okay.
That's a week full in Austria. It's a week full of events from Monday to Friday. It's really, really interesting what date we choose, Sonia. And hopefully you enjoyed it. And Anne-Sophie, and get really in touch with Sonia. She deserves it, and she had a lot of really, really interesting approaches.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and sorry for the short.
All the best for the kids and for you.
Bye.
Have a nice time. Bye. Yes.